On January 23, 1959, 9 engineering students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute embarked on a grueling Category 3 ski trek into the remote northern Urals. They were highly experienced outdoor enthusiasts, carrying equipment they had designed themselves for sub-zero survival. By early February, they had vanished. When search parties finally reached the slopes of Kolatsiak a month later, they found this. Looking closely at this original search photograph, you can see the group's tent is partially collapsed under the snow. All of their cold weather gear, boots, and provisions were still neatly arranged inside, but the canvas had been slashed open from the inside out. Following a trail of footprints downslope, investigators found the bodies of the 9 hikers scattered across a mile of frozen terrain. Some wore only a single shoe, others were entirely barefoot or dressed only in their undergarments. They had fled their only source of shelter into the bitter cold, seemingly in a state of total panic. The condition of the bodies confused the medical examiners. While 6 victims died of exposure, 3 suffered catastrophic internal injuries, fractured skulls and crushed ribs, damage equivalent to a high-speed car crash, yet their skin showed no external bruising. Some bodies were missing eyes, and one was missing a tongue. Yuri Yudin, the 10th member of the group, had turned back days earlier due to severe joint pain, making him the sole survivor. He watched as the Soviet authorities quickly closed the 1959 investigation, stating only that the hikers had been killed by an unknown, compelling natural force. That vague official statement created an absolute vacuum of information. Without modern forensic science to explain the medical anomalies, the internet spent the next 60 years filling that void with folklore. Alien abductions, military weapons tests, and Yeti attacks entirely eclipsed the actual events of that night. The first suspects in 1959 were the Mansi, an indigenous population of reindeer herders who lived in the region. Early investigators theorized that the hikers had trespassed onto a sacred mountain and were hunted down in the dark. The original case files dismantle this idea immediately. The Mansi were actually hired by the local government to help locate the missing students. They spent weeks working alongside Russian search and rescue teams, navigating the terrain and getting paid 35 rubles a day for their expertise. With foul play ruled out, conspiracy theorists latch on to the most famous anomaly in the autopsy files, the presence of radioactive material found on the hikers' clothing. But the 1959 radiological analysis report provides a grounded explanation. The lab technicians found low-level beta emission isolated strictly to specific spots on 3 pieces of outer clothing. These victims were university engineering students working in mid-century Soviet laboratories, where exposure to uranium dust was a common occupational hazard. They simply carried that contamination with them from the campus into the wilderness. When we strip away the assumptions of human malice, government assassins, and paranormal events, we are left with a single, undeniable suspect: the mountain itself. In 2021, geotechnical researchers at ETH Zurich decided to digitally reconstruct the exact mechanical conditions of the campsite using modern avalanche simulation technology. This cross-section shows the first link in the chain of events. To pitch their tent on a 28-degree incline, the hikers excavated a flat ledge into the snowpack. By making this geometric cut, they unknowingly compromised the structural integrity of a weak layer. Over the next several hours, katabatic winds swept down the mountain, carrying massive amounts of fresh snow. That snow accumulated into a dense, heavy slab directly above the weakened cut the hikers had made. Sometime after midnight, a solid block of dense snow fractured and dropped squarely onto the tent. This slab avalanche delivered a massive localized crushing force, fracturing ribs and skulls without ever sweeping them down the slope. Trapped beneath a crushing weight in pitch darkness, the survivors panicked. They violently slashed their way out through the canvas, abandoning their coats, their boots, and their survival gear, and dragged their injured friends out onto the exposed slope. At this moment, the group is alive, but they are critically injured and standing in the snow in their socks and sweaters. To understand exactly what hit them next, modern hydrologists pulled the 1959 meteorological records from the nearby Bermontovo weather station. Those records reveal that on the exact night the hikers fled their tent, a massive Arctic cyclone rolled over the Urals. This graph maps the ambient temperature in the region. Right as the group made it out of the tent, the leading edge of a cold front caused the temperature to plummet by roughly 20 degrees, bottoming out at negative 28.8 degrees Celsius. Now factor in winds whipping down the mountain at 15 meters per second. The wind chill plunged to negative 51 degrees Celsius. At that extreme, the human body loses its ability to generate heat. Blood flow shuts down to the extremities, the nervous system depresses, and total thermoregulatory failure occurs within 2 to 3 hours. The slab avalanche delivered the mechanical injuries, but it was the perfectly timed, invisible Arctic cold front that acted as the inescapable executioner. 9 people died because of an alignment of 3 highly specific, compounding variables: a structural mistake made while digging out a campsite, a delayed, localized slab avalanche, and a historic drop in atmospheric temperature. Look at the sheer scale of this environment. In conditions this severe, the margin for error is 0. The human body is entirely incompatible with an exposed winter slope at minus 51 degrees. The Dyatlov Pass incident requires no cover-ups, no indigenous curses, and no extraterrestrial intervention to make sense. It is a story of physics and biology operating exactly as they are designed to. For decades, Yuri Yudin lived with the grief of losing his closest friends, while watching the internet turn their final, desperate hours into a science fiction mystery. Stripping away the folklore is the only way to honor the reality of what they actually endured. The scientific truth of the Dyatlov Pass is more terrifying than any of the myths. Nature does not need monsters to be deadly.